Welcome, and thank you for listening to Sandy Creek Stirrings. I'm your host, Joshua Jimenez.
And if you're going to win souls, you've got to love souls. In spite of their meanness, in spite of the way they look, in spite of everything, you've got to seek to bring souls to Jesus Christ because you love them, because Jesus loved them, and because Jesus died for them, and you're trying to bring them to the Son of God.
The Bible says in Psalm 84:11, my last verse, "For the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly." I've based my whole life on that it pays to serve God, and I believe that with all my heart.
God has given us a guidebook. God has given us a directional map. And that guidebook, that map, is the precious Word of God.
Listen, don't just go and sit in the pew. Find some way to serve, and serve as a family. Be a part of everything at church. And when you learn to love what God loves, your children will learn to love it as well.
Homes are not that spiritually strong. We're getting overtaken by the world quickly, but unfortunately, we're pumping all the sewage in. We're letting the world in when that ought to be a haven.
Welcome back to Sandy Creek Stirrings, and thank you again for listening. Today, we're going to talk about parental lies. Parental lies. These are things that I hear parents say that are, well, frankly, they're just lies, and they need to be viewed as such. We're not going to talk too much today about how to fix these issues, and more, I just want to make you aware. If you're a listener, you are a parent, I want to make you aware of some of these things that are just lies, and do not get caught up in them as being truth. And sometimes we just need to come out into the open and say, that's a lie. That's simply not true. And then once we are willing to be open and honest with a lie, saying it is a lie, it's how can you be honest with a lie? And but being honest and being open about it and calling it as it truly is, then we can come to a point where we can begin to obliterate those lies. We can get them out of our life. We can get them out of our parenting. And so these are parental lies. I'm going to expose them to you today. I want you to chew on them. I want you to think about them. And hopefully you can realize if some of these things are being used in your life or in your parenting or maybe in another area of life. We've got to be very careful we don't fall into the mud pits of these lies and get stuck in them, because it will inhibit our parenting and it will inhibit our children and their future. And so we need to take a look at these today. Parental lies, we'll discuss those in just a second, but let me encourage you and thank you for being a listener of Sandy Creek Stirrings. I hope you've been enjoying these podcasts. We're here on episode number 205. And things are going along just swimmingly, and things are going very well. We're excited about the progress we have seen here at Sandy Creek Stirrings, listeners in over 28 different countries, and just excited about the different things that we have heard that the Lord is doing through this podcast and allowing people to be able to grow and to be able to learn some things and to be able just to be encouraged. And I hope that's been the purpose and goal of Sandy Creek Stirrings, is to encourage you and to stir you up for the cause of Christ. And I hope we've been able to accomplish that goal. If we have, let me encourage you to send us an email. That email address is joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. Again, joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. You can send me an email. Tell me you're enjoying the podcast. Tell me you're not enjoying the podcast. Whatever you want to share with me is just fine. And by the way, if you have a question that you'd like answered here on the podcast, you can email all those again to joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. I hope you would do me a favor if you're willing. If you'd leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Facebook, it would allow other people to find the same content that hopefully you've been able to enjoy and listen to for however long you have been a listener. And may I say again, thank you for being a listener of Sandy Creek Stirrings. Well, here we are today, parental lies. Let's jump right into them. Examine these. Think about this. Are these in my parenting? How can I get rid of them? Here we are. Number one, I hear parents say, that's just the way teens are. That's just the way teens are. And they'll finish it. They never talk to me. That's just the way teens are. They're rebellious. That's just the way teens are. They have a terrible attitude, but, that's just the way teens are. They just don't want to work, but that's just the way teens are. Can I tell you this? If that's the lie you've been content in using, most of the time, I'd say a fair majority of the time, at least in the instances that I have seen, it's not really the teen's fault. Typically, it's the parents. More often than not, it's the way they were raised and the training they received. Look, I am so fed up as a youth director hearing from parents, well, all teens are going to go through a rebellious stage. That is simply not true. That is not true. Not all teens have to or will go through a rebellious stage. Now, is it common? Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on in the life of a teenager. They're becoming their own person. You might say, I hate that type of terminology that's used. They're becoming their own person. They're finding themselves. And I don't like that kind of terminology. But yeah, there's some things going on in their life that really is good soil for rebellion. But not every teen is going to be rebellious, and not every teen has to be rebellious. I would challenge you as a parent that if you go into the teen years thinking, well, my teen is going to be rebellious, you're probably right. It's kind of like the guy who, is about to do something and he says, I just can't do this. Well, if he's already put that in his mind, most likely, then yes, he won't be able to do it because your mind has a lot to do with the things that you do. Let me encourage you as parents, let's approach those teenage years saying, my child, I'm going to do my best to make sure they don't have a rebellious attitude, that they don't have that, what we might call, and I don't like this terminology either, but that stage of rebellion. I'm not going to allow that to happen as a parent. I'm going to do everything I can to stop that from happening. Now, all of us have rebellion in ourselves to some degree. Pride and rebellion fit hand in hand. And all of us have a streak of rebellion in our hearts, and all of us are going to rebel in certain ways. I'm not necessarily talking about like a parent says something to their child and the child disobeys. What is that? Well, that's disobedience. It's rebellion as well, though. They're rebelling against the authority. I'm not necessarily talking about that, right? We're going to have that no matter what age. We're going to have that in 2, 3, 4, all the way up. We're going to have that in our kids. I'm talking about the rebellion where we as parents think that, they're going to run off and they're going to run with the wrong crowd and they're going to try smoking and drinking and they're going to have a rebellious attitude and I can't get them to do anything and they have a terrible attitude all the time. And that's the type of rebellious stage, if we want to call it that I'm referring to. And that's not something that every teenager has to go through. That idea that, my teens just don't want to work, but that's just the way teens are. No, that's the way you train them to be, right? Every person, I believe, is born without the desire to really be a hard worker. Now, that can vary, that can fade, I guess, between person, but naturally we are a sinful person. And what does the Holy Spirit wants us to do? He wants us to work. And so I think the way you're raised and what home you are raised in develops that worker mentality, that ethic of good work within that teenager. And so really it comes down to the way they were raised. The idea that they never talk to me, that's just the way teens are. No, that's a product of the relationship you have developed with them. If you have developed an open relationship with your teenagers, you have their heart, that's really not going to be an issue. It's the way you trained them. And can I just say, that's a parental lie to go and say that's just the way teens are. No, the honest answer would be that's just the way I raised them to be. Now, as I said, situations can vary, and that's not going to be true. I'm not going to broad brush the entire parents across the world. I'm not going to broad brush them, but many times, and I think many youth directors across the United States would verify what I'm saying to be true, that most of the times it's not the teenagers, it's the parents and the way they raise their children. Number 2, for parental lies, I hear parents say this all the time. My wife is the nursery director at our church. We hear this all the time. People say, you hear it out in public, people say, it's just the terrible twos, as their kid is like in Walmart flipping around, screaming their head off, jerking stuff off the shelves, throwing stuff on the floor, running around with screaming their head off, not obeying. They say, well, it's just the terrible twos. It's just a stage. They're just crazy because of this stage they are in. They'll grow out of it. Can I tell you this, parent? If you enter with the mindset into those toddler years, 2, terrible twos, if you enter into that age with the mindset that this is going to be the terrible twos, it will turn into the terrible 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s. It's not really the terrible 2s, it's the lack of training. And we go back to the same thing. I see so many parents who aren't willing to discipline the 2-year-old. And instead, they just want to lie and say, well, it's just the terrible 2s. No, what it is, it's a lack of discipline. It's bad parenting. It's bad training. And lack of training, discipline, and effort is what causes the terrible 2s. And can I just say this, and again, I'm not trying to broad brush parents again, but lazy parents will use that as an excuse for their lazy parenting and lack of effort. They don't want to put in the time and effort to train a 2-year-old, so they'll just say, well, it's just the stage they're in. It's just the terrible 2s. Hogwash. It's not. It's lazy parenting is what it is. Because I've got a 2-year-old. I've got a 1-year-old right now, as of the recording of this episode. I've got a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old with another one on the way. It is hard work, right? It's not easy. It is very hard work to get your 2-year-old to obey, to pick up their toys, to the things that we might consider small obedience that is huge for a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. It's huge. It's massive. It's important. And you know what happens is we come and we go to our kids' room and we tell them, hey, pick up your toys. And we come back 5 minutes later and they picked up one toy. Well, now we have to follow up. Sadly, a lot of parents just check out and they say, well, I told them once, they just need to obey, now I just got to let them do whatever. They're only 2. No, don't be a lazy parent. Go back and you have to learn to follow up. And sometimes discipline is going to be this way. With a 2-year-old, and it's been that way for me before. Sometimes you're going to tell your 2-year-old, pick up your toys. You come back 30 seconds later, they're still playing. You grab your 2-year-old by the hand, you take them out, you discipline them in a loving, caring, right way, biblical way. You discipline them, you take them back to their room. Pick up your toys. You come back 15 seconds later, they're still not picking up their toys. You grab them by the hand. 30 minutes later, they finally start picking up their toys, and it was over and over and over and over trips to being disciplined. Let me tell you something. That is hard work, and some parents don't want to put in the effort to make sure that their children don't get stuck in what we want to lie about and say is the terrible 2s. That's a parental lie. Number 3, here we go. Here's a parental lie. They are just shy. They're just shy. I know. They really should shake your hands. Hey, Bobby, shake so-and-so's hand. Susan, say hello. And they don't do it. Well, they're just shy. They have a shy personality. They may be shyer. Is that even a word? They may be more shy. That's proper, I think. They may be more shy than some other children, just personality-wise. But that does not excuse bad behavior. Being shy should not be an excuse for bad behavior. They don't obey. Well, they're just shy. They're not polite. They're just shy. They don't say hello to somebody. We said, say hello. Oh, they're just shy. Well, they didn't say thank you to the person you said to say thank you. They're just shy. And they're not shaking someone's hand at church. You said, go shake their hand. They won't do it. They're just shy. So many parents excuse disobedience because, well, she's just shy. Can I tell you what? My oldest daughter, Liberty, she's 4 years old now. We had an evangelist that him and his wife came through. They come through every year. This was 2 years ago. She was 2. And they came through. She had just turned 2, and she could talk a little. She could talk a lot, but you couldn't understand half of what she was saying. And so she was talking and doing all this, giving hugs and shaking hands and, products of training. And so that evangelist came through. She had met them before. They walked in for dinner at my parents' house. We were over there for dinner as well. And so they walked in. I shook their hand, and my wife, Tabitha, shook their hand. And then we said, Liberty, shake their hand. And she didn't do it. Now, I could have just lied, right? I mean, she may have been shy, right? I mean, that may be the truth, but I'm using the lie as an excuse for her disobedience. I could have just said, well, she's just shy. I'm sorry. No, that's not good parenting. All right, so I did to her what my parents did to me. I said, hang on 1 second. I'll be right back. I grabbed her hand. I took her down the hall, closed the bedroom door. We had a little discipline session, brought her back out, and she shook their hand. You know what? It took effort. It took work. But I wasn't going to let I wasn't going to excuse their bad behavior by saying, well, she's just shy. Can I just tell you this, that evangelist was very encouraged that I had done that. He said, you're doing the right thing. Now, has it always been that easy? No. Sometimes there's been multiple trips. And let me encourage you as well, if you're a listener, you don't have kids, maybe you're past that stage, and but a parent comes up to you or you're in church and they tell their little toddler, hey, shake their hand. Don't excuse the child either as the other adult and say, no, it's fine. They're just shy. It's okay. They don't have to shake my hands. They can just wave. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Agree and side with the parent. Don't step in their way. Let the parent handle their child the way that their child needs to be trained. And when the child goes to get disciplined, just stay there. The parent says, hey, I'll be right back. Don't wander away. Just be right back. Be the guinea pig and allow yourself to be part of that child's training. Number 4, here we go, parental lies. They are old enough to make their own decisions. They are old enough to make their own decisions. They are 18, so now they are responsible to make their own decisions. I can't tell them what to do anymore. That is so, and I know, some Christians don't use this word, but I'm going to. That is so stupid. Why do we think that, they're 18, they make their own decisions? And yeah, they move out of the house, they get an apartment. Yeah, they're going to make a decision on what movies they watch. They're going to make a decision on what music they're going to listen to. Yeah, I mean, you can give them advice, you can give them counsel, but you can't tell them what to do. But here's what I'm referring to. I'm not referring to those kids out of the house. I'm referring to kids in the house. Why do we as Christians, our kids turn 18 years old, they're still living with us, and they want to do whatever they want to do. They want to watch the bad movies we never allowed in the living room, and we say, well, we just have to let them make their own decisions now. We walk down the hallway past their bedroom door, and they're just listening to that worldly contemporary Christian music that we've told all our other kids, we don't listen to that garbage, but they're listening to it in the room. Well, I can't say anything about it. They're 18. They get to make their decisions now. Not if they live under my roof, they don't. Here's the problem. I can tell you family after family after family after family who allowed wrongdoing by their 18-year-old, and can I just say they're still a kid, they're still a child, they're still learning, they still need their parents, and it's different, they move out of the house, whatever that may be. Let me tell you something. I can tell you family after family after family who their kid turned 18, they stopped being the parent that they needed to be. If they're still living in the home, you still need to be the parent they need. And they stopped being that, and the kids started dressing ways they were never allowed to dress when they were, quote-unquote, under their parents' authority. They start listening to things they should have never listened to, watching things they should have never watched, going places they should never go, hanging out with people they should have never hung out with. And you know what? The parents are like, I can't do anything. They're 18 years old. They have to make their own decisions. Now, here's the issue. You still have a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old at home, and who do you think is influencing them? Well, they're still living at home, and they're doing fine. And mommy, daddy don't say anything to them, so it must be okay. I can tell you family after family after family after family who let the 18-year-old drop their standards in the home. And then the rest of the kids started doing the same thing. And pretty soon, the family who had standards, well, it's now lost because they let the 18-year-old in the home get away with it. And it may sound kind of harsh to some, I understand. But let me tell you something. We raise our kids right. We invest time in them. And we're not going to, just because they turn 18, allow wrong things into our home. We still have a responsibility to protect our marriage. We still have a responsibility to protect our home. We still have a responsibility to protect our children. And sometimes we have to make some hard decisions on what we're going to do with those disobedient children. But we have to be careful we're not enabling those disobedient children as well. Don't fall for that trap. Well, they're 18. If I tell them what to do, they're just going to move out. Well, you already lost their heart then. That's not really a respect issue as much as it's an attitude issue, or rather a heart issue, can I put it that way? Number 5, my family is more important than church, so I can skip church for our family vacation. My family is more important than church, so I can skip church for our family vacation. Now, look, this is a fine line to ride. Sometimes a church can hurt your family, and it may be time to find a new church. But prioritizing your family does not mean you deprioritize God. That's not what it means. You say, well, I prioritize my family. They're the most important thing. That doesn't mean you deprioritize God. God is number one. And here's the deal. You follow God, you're going to love your wife. You're going to love your children. You're going to care for your family. You're going to be a hard worker. You're going to do all of those things. Prioritizing family doesn't mean you deprioritize God. If you truly care about your family, let me tell you this, then you will be faithful to church. Vacation time comes around. Well, it's a Sunday. We're going to church and we're going to Sunday school. It's like we take a vacation and we say, well, since I'm on vacation, I don't have to go to Sunday school. Sorry, God, I'm taking a vacation from you. Because that's what we're saying by our actions. I'm just taking a vacation from you, God, and my family is very important. If you want your family to make it for the cause of Christ, don't skip church ever. You don't prioritize family by deprioritizing God. Keep them in the proper order, and your family will make it for God. Number 6, my son or my daughter, my son and that girl are just friends. My daughter and that boy are just friends. Yeah, sure. Not for long. Listen to me. You cannot expect to entertain long conversations with someone of the opposite gender and it not affect your heart. In the same way, you cannot expect to allow your teenage son or your teenage daughter to text someone of the opposite gender from their school. Listen, are you listening? You cannot expect for them to talk to someone of the opposite gender from their school and not have their heart affected. That's why, look, you go in the corporate world, that's why you see bosses leaving their marriages of 20, 30 years for their secretary. Why? Because every day they're with their secretary. Every day they're talking with her. They go to lunch with her, which isn't right. And they do all these different things with their secretary. What happens? The communication is there and the heart is affected. Here's a really good idea, parents. And I said I wasn't going to give all the fix-it to all these lies, but I'll give this one. Here's a really good idea. Don't allow your youth to text people of the opposite gender. But my mom, me and Drusilla, whatever her name is, me and her, we're just friends. We're just talking. That's great. Not on the phone, you're not. You're not texting her. But Mom, we're just hanging out. No, you're not. But Dad, me and Johnny, well, we're just friends. No, not for long. You won't be. So we're just gonna make sure it doesn't happen. So you are 12, right? You're 13. You're like 6 years at a minimum away from marriage. 6 years. Johnny is probably not going to be the one you're going to marry. Maybe, but I doubt it. You're not just friends. You're not going to stay just friends. They may be really good, and they may be really thinking that, well, we are just friends. They may think so. They may have pure intentions. It will not stay that way. For more information on that, listen to episode number 194, 10 Technology Purity Tips for Teens, and we talk about the subject a little bit more. Episode 194, 10 Technology Purity Tips for Teen. Parental line number 7. I raised my kids right. I don't have to keep an eye on their technology. I raised my kids right. I don't have to keep an eye on their technology. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. If you're saying that, you have been fooled. Satan is good at temptation. Satan is good at temptation. He is going to tempt them. So keep up with their phone, keep up with their email, keep up with their social media, keep up with their rooms, keep up with their friends, keep up with all those things. Just because you raise their kids right doesn't mean they won't be tempted to do the wrong thing. And sometimes that temptation, that open door to sin, will cause them, and will not necessarily cause them. They can't be forced to sin. That's their own free choice. But it opens the door to sin, and a lot of times they choose that door. And especially with technology. We have an epidemic of technology sin in our churches because parents have been fooled. Well, I take them to church. They know right from wrong. And so I just bought them a cell phone. They'll be fine. I've taught them right from wrong. They are a good kid. Can I tell you why the statistics say 7 out of 10 men in our churches view pornography on a regular basis? Can I tell you why 3 out of 10 women in our churches, look it up, these aren't lies. 3 out of 10 women in our churches view pornography on a regular basis. Can I just tell you why? Because, well, they were raised as good kids, and we just thought we shouldn't hold them accountable anymore. Can I just tell you that David, if he knew the things that Ammon, remember the one who ended up raping his sister, the one who ended up being killed by Absalom, the one who just started this tumbleweed down the path, just blowing down the street of David's family just crumbling. You realize if David knew some of the things that Amnon, and the Bible says, and Amnon had a friend. If he knew some of the things that Amnon and his friend were talking about, they probably could have nipped all the problems in the bud, just like Barney Fife, nip it in the bud. They could have nipped it all right there and been done and over with, never had those issues. But the problem is the accountability was gone because they are raised to be good kids. And I'm not discrediting your good children. I was raised as a good kid. Ask my parents what they thought. They thought I was a good kid. Ask my youth director. He thought I was a good kid. Ask a bunch of people. They thought I was a good kid, but I got into a whole lot of trouble. Good kids can get into trouble. Can I just say this as well? Your kids, if they are quote-unquote good kids, you've raised them in church, you've raised them right, you've disciplined them, they've got good manners, they've got good work ethic, they've got a good attitude, they love the Lord, they're doing things right. So they have an extra big bullseye on their back. Satan wants to take them out because they are the future of strong Christian homes, strong Christian families, which all leads to strong Christian churches. They are the future, and they've got a bullseye on their back because Satan wants to take them out. So we have to make sure that we're keeping them accountable. I've said it before, and I still think it's wise. You may not, but I do. I'm not getting my teenagers a phone. I'm also not sending them to public school. That's a different topic for a different day. I'm not sending them to public school, so that's one reason why. But I'm not getting them a phone. One, they're at home with me. They need to call somebody. They can use my phone. They need to text somebody. They can use my phone. If they're going to be going out with somebody, well, their friend or whoever they're going out with or the adult they're going out with is going to have a phone. They can use their phone. Or I might do what my parents did. I might buy a flip phone. That's my flip phone. And it doesn't have any internet on it. And if they want to go on an activity and they need a phone, I can send that phone with them. But when they get home, the phone goes back to me. That might be the biggest step I would take. But I will not get my teenager's phone because I know the dangers that are there. I know the dangers that are there. And I want to keep them away from that. If we fail to keep our kids accountable, we just continue to leave the door open for temptation. There was a reason why God, even at the beginning, though there was no sin at this point in time, I believe God knew the future, don't you? And he said it is not good for man to be alone. Can I just tell you this, parent of a teenager, it's not good for your teenager to be alone. Especially at night, especially alone on their phone. It's not good. And so we've got to put in some measures and some different things to keep our teenagers accountable. Again, for more on that subject of keeping teens accountable, especially with technology, that's episode number 194. I'd encourage you to listen to 10 technology purity tips for teenagers. So those are some parental lies that I hear commonly used by parents. That's just the way teens are. It's just the terrible twos. They're just shy. They're old enough to make their own decisions. My family is more important than church, so I can skip church for our family vacation. My son and that girl are just friends, and I raised my kids right. I don't have to keep an eye on their technology. You know what those all are? Lies. Lies. Can I ask you this, parent? Are you using those in your life? Because if you are, let's pull back and say, you know what? That's just a lie. How can I go about fixing it? Think about that, parent. Hopefully that'll stir you up to get some things right in your own life and in your own parenting. Trust me, we'll never be perfect at parenting. I never will be. But together we can all help each other, counsel each other, and grow together at being the best parents we can be, raising children for the Lord. Until next time, keep looking up and keep stirred up for the cause of Christ.